I've been screaming out about this loudly for the last 3 or 4 years, very loudly for the last 12 months since the 5G system has began to be rolled out, and many people have become very aware of it, but there still has been an overall failure to gain any focus on this smart system and the tech and the algorithms and the AI and the censorship and the social crediting and everything that's coming along with it. Many people have just been distracted by their particular theories and by their particular rabbit holes. And sure, many people have done a great job on exposing all sorts of levels of corruption in all sorts of areas, but no one's been paying any attention to the tech. And this is truly where so many of the other options break down. It really is. It's where the QAnon option breaks down completely. Because people are waiting for Trump to come along and save things. They're waiting for all these pedophiles to be arrested. And even if there are mass arrests, let's say that there's a whole bunch of surface players that are arrested, a whole bunch of websites taken out of action, all of this stuff happens. Underneath it is the tech. Underneath it is the algorithms that are going to be monitoring what everybody's posting on social media, putting black marks against their name if they post the wrong things. And the thing is, they won't even be able to post the wrong things. The way they're talking about it, folks, they'll have algorithms in place which will have Google's fact checker there. So that as you're typing a sentence, it will be watching what you're typing. And if what you're typing does not confirm with the officially labeled fact, then you simply won't be able to post it. You know, if you want to share some independent information, some alternate information, some alternate theory on what may have just happened with some school shooting or whatever, the algorithm simply won't let you post it to begin with. And QAnon and Trump are not going to change this. You know, all of these things are going on, folks, and I'm not hearing QAnon address the smart grid. I'm not hearing QAnon address the tech. I'm not hearing Q address the algorithms, the social crediting. None of this is being addressed within the Q narrative. None of it. And it's the same with the other side of things and the more conspiratorial side of things. On the more conspiratorial side of the independent media, it's just become a mishmash of infighting and pointing the finger at everybody and hacking anybody down who doesn't comply with your chosen belief system. And while people are busy discrediting everybody else and trying to hack everybody else down and calling anybody who disagrees with them a gatekeeper, underneath it all, again, the smart grid is rolling out. And this infighting, this whole conspiratorial mindset and pointing the finger at each other and attempting to undermine everybody who thinks differently to you and calling them a gatekeeper is actually the best gatekeeping movement you've ever seen, because it prevents anything from happening. It prevents any focus from ever being gained. In many cases, it keeps real activists tied up in having to defend themselves all the time, and it prevents any real attention being directed towards the root of the problem. Everybody's too busy hacking down each other and calling everybody else a gatekeeper. That's how gatekeeping works, folks. That itself is a gatekeeping operation. How is it gatekeeping? Well, it's gatekeeping because it keeps everybody locked into this enclosure, arguing and pointing the finger at each other and never focusing on those who hold the keys to the enclosure. That's how gatekeeping works, folks. They keep you locked in a pen. And that's what all this infighting is about. That's what all the accusations are about. Anybody who's calling someone they've never met a gatekeeper is performing a gatekeeping operation themselves, and half the time they don't even know it. But within the independence in the independent media and the alternative media, all calling people gatekeepers does is create distrust and prevent any focus from ever being achieved against the system. And that prevention of obtaining any focus and that prevention of ever creating any real active response that is created by this type of dialogue is itself gatekeeping. This is why you don't see me posting videos about other people, folks. You don't see me hacking down other researchers. No matter how much I disagree with them, no matter how much I get attacked by other researchers, you don't see me respond and start posting videos about them and getting into YouTube battles and all the things that people try to get you to do, which is all a distraction from what we should be paying attention to, which is the controlling hand at the top and the smart grid that's being rolled out underneath everything, the algorithms, the smartphones, all the stuff that we're being compelled to use. And the thing is, if people could just agree to disagree on whatever their belief systems are and allow others to be open-minded or whatever it is. I mean, just agree to disagree. People have to understand they don't know what's going on. None of us really know what's going on, and put their egos down and get some focus on the actual control grid, because if we could just do that, focus on the control grid, we could heal the world in a day. The unfortunate thing is that people are just not willing to do that. They just seem to be locked into attempting to extract energy from other people, rather than focusing on establishing the freedom that mankind so desperately needs to put this situation to rest and to heal the condition that we find ourselves in. Now, all we've got to do is get a little bit of focus, but we really do have to pull ourselves away from the tech. This is stuff that I get from people as well when I suggest that people throw away their smartphones. They say, well, gee, how would I ever listen to your radio show? Well, the way you did before they invented smartphones, folks, on your computer, on a laptop, on something else, not a phone. You know, you can access the internet through other devices that are not smartphones. You don't need to be carrying a scrying mirror around with you everywhere you go, a surveillance device tracking you, monitoring you everywhere you go. You don't need to be doing this. You can access the show and access the internet when you get home on your computer. That way, when you're out in a real world, you will actually be interacting with the real world and interacting with real people in real time. You don't need to be in the virtual world interacting with virtual people in a virtual world all the time when you're out in the real world with real people around you. That's the problem, you see. And that's why I suggest that people throw away their smartphones. I mean, I access the internet all the time, folks, and I upload YouTube clips and do all the stuff that I do, and I don't use a smartphone. So, just a thought. You know, just a thought, because the only reason they're able to roll this smart grid out is because we just use it by matter of course, and we construe it to be convenient to be using these things, but really it is the surveillance grid itself. That is the New World Order, the smart grid. A technological dystopia, removing all of our connections to reality in the real world and real things that we used to do to each other, like talking to each other, having eye contact with each other, handing money over to each other at a shop counter, removing all this and putting it all in a virtual digital world so you can be locked out of your life, because your life exists only in the digital realm. That's the way it's becoming, folks. You know, this is how the wars are able to be fought. This is how the smart grid is able to be rolled out. You know, this is how our politicians are able to get away with all the things they're getting away with. This is how come we've got so much theatre in the world at the moment and everything is just casual. So all this stuff is happening and people don't pay any attention to it. They're too locked in the virtual world. And even when they go out and start talking to people in the real world, half the time they're not talking about anything except what they're seeing on their smartphones. Half the time when they go out and have dinner or meet their friends, they're not even talking. They're just all gathered in the same place and they're all lost in their own virtual world on their smartphones while they all sit around together. That's the sort of world we've become. That's the sort of species we've got, folks. Either that or they're part of the independent media, part of the truth movement or whatever you want to call it, but half the time, even with that, they're just locked down a rabbit hole trying to get more information about something or more dirt on somebody else. So many people on YouTube have resorted to posting videos about each other and attacking everybody else and posting their analysis of what this other truth seeker said or whatever. It's just gotten so ridiculous. No one is paying attention. No one is looking at what the New World Order is, how quickly it's rolling out, and what steps we could take to circumvent it if we could just get a little bit of focus. Of course, we're not going to get that until we can get some unity, and while everybody is continuing to hack everybody down who doesn't comply with their own chosen belief system, we're never going to get anywhere. And the disturbing part about it is most people who are locked into belief systems also hack down anybody who keeps an open mind and simply isn't locked into any belief system. People who are still genuinely searching for the end of the rabbit hole and don't believe they've found it yet, sometimes these people get the most abuse. Because you must believe, you must lock yourself into a belief halfway down the rabbit hole again, folks. Perfect gatekeeping operations. But the bottom line here is that we do have to get some focus. We really do. You know, this smart grid is rolling out very quickly. All the algorithms and all the changes that are being made to social media, all the stuff that's going to come out of this theatre that's just happened with Alex Jones, which is definitely contrived, definitely planned, definitely done to set a certain set of dominoes in motion, and it's all going to lead to tighter regulation of the internet. It's all going to lead to censorship. It's all going to lead to the rolling out of algorithms all designed to keep us safe, which are all going to keep us silenced, is what it's really leading to if we don't pay attention. And that's the thing, folks, we're never going to get anywhere until we've established freedom. We're never going to get freedom while we continue arguing and accusing each other of whatever. And while we're doing this, all these algorithms are rolling out, and very soon, it's not going to be very long, you're not going to have access to all the stuff you wanted to go and research anyway. All those video clips you're looking for, all those belief systems that you've got, all those things you're finding to support those belief systems. You just won't have access to any of that information soon, because it'll all get expunged from the internet. Because we were all too busy pointing the finger and infighting and arguing with each other while all of this tech and all these algorithms and all this whole smart system was being rolled out underneath everything, while most people generally simply weren't paying attention. You know, that's something that often becomes the most frustrating in this work, is people wanting solutions to the situation that we're in, but not really seeing the situation that we're in themselves, and not seeing how their participation in the system is what is creating the situation. And people write to me and say, well, how do I stop participating in the system? What do I not shop? What do I not eat? What do I not live anywhere? No, you just step away from the technology. Shop with cash. Refuse to use all their smart systems. Refuse the smart meters. Refuse the 5G grid. Go back to living like a human being. Interact with people in the real world. You know, there's ways we can slow this system down by simply not complying with it right now. But, you know, ultimately we've got to step back and really see what the whole thing is. As I've said so many times, what we're dealing with here is a multinational criminal cabal. You've got to get this whole concept of nations and governments out of your mind. It's just one big corporate system that is being used to play people off against each other and play countries and nations off against each other in order to create this whole smart grid. That's what it's about. That's what it's always been about. That's what all these theatres of conflict are about. That's what the whole concept of nations are about. You know, nations in their current aspect, in their current situation where they're all based on economic viability, so they've got to compete with each other for resources and all this stuff. This is just the result of the money system, the result of the banking cartels, the result of this whole corporate system that's been superimposed over our reality. And we need to see that for what it is. And there's many people who can see it for what it is, but yet they still believe they're going to find the remedy somewhere in government. And that really is something that amazes me as well. They think Trump's going to come along and save things. And sure, he may come along and heal things politically, and we'll have a decent political system in place. But what about the smart grid? What about all that? Because government is soon to become irrelevant when it's all run by algorithms. Government will just be figureheads. I mean, they're just figureheads anyway. It's just a puppet show now. But it's going to become even more that way once it all turns over to algorithms and all becomes smart. And it's our participation in it. See, that's the solution. You really want to know how to stop complying with the system? Throw away your smartphone. Turn off your television. Start participating in your child's education and seeing what they're being taught at school. Start participating in what is taught at the school system. Start participating in what the politicians are doing and having a look at what they're doing and stop complying with it. That's how to defeat the system. That's how to stop what's coming.